So I played a lot of Secret of Mana as a kid, to the point where this game single-handedly made me fall in love with the entire genre. And because Secret of Mana also made it onto modern consoles through the collection of Mana, I thought it might be a good idea to show you some secrets you may not know about this classic RPG. Now the overall goal is to give you more options on how you want to play the game, but keep in mind that some of these tricks can trivialize parts of your playthrough, so what you do with this knowledge is entirely up to you. I will of course also include some legal tips for a more natural experience, like the best equipment and support spells. In the end though, I will show you how to have a huge power trip in the Mana Fortress by forging a legendary sword you are not supposed to have at this point. But first, let's start fair and square right at the beginning of your adventure with a trick that would also solve most of my problems in real life. Getting rich fast. And you can already do this the first time you reach Neko's shop before the Water Palace. All you need is an item in your inventory, which is not a candy and not an herb. I simply bought a chocolate bar because that's the cheapest one you can get at this point. And don't worry if this sounds complicated, I'll show the whole process on screen. First, sell all of the candies and herbs you currently have, and then buy exactly one candy and one herb again. And yes, selling and buying exactly one is important, don't skip it. Next, exit the shop and go to the ring menu. Put your cursor on the item to the right side of the one herb you have. In my case, the chocolate bar. Then press right on the D-pad, but once the cursor starts moving, immediately exit the menu before you select the herb. Then go to the sell item window and you know that it worked if your cursor starts on the herb. If it's somewhere else, go back into the ring menu and try again. Now sell your one herb and also the single candy you have. Then exit and re-enter the sell window, and the item next to where the herb was, the chocolate bar in my case, should now have no name in its item box. Selling this no-name item gives you a whopping 30,000 gold. And after the first transaction, the item is called a bled. You can keep selling bleds until you have as much gold as you want, and if you want to end the glitch, sell bleds until the item box is blank again and buy a candy. Now with so much money at your disposal, you can go on a big shopping spree and don't feel bad when you buy something from this rip-off merchant. Oh, and you should never ever try to use a bled item. It can crash your game, if not worse. Okay, so we might be rich now, but money cannot buy companionship. And for the next trick, we first need another character in our party. Now call me stupid, but even though I played this game a lot as a kid, I never realized that there are different ways to get the girl Prim. I always went straight to Gaia's navel after the Water Palace, got the sprite first, and then rescued Prim from those two werewolves in the witch's forest. It wasn't until much later that I realized you can also get the girl first by going to Pandora's castle and watch her argue with her dad. And you can even temporarily lose her again if you don't accompany her into the forest first. You can even perform a full sequence break and get both the girl and the sprite before entering the water temple. All you need to do is watch Dilek and his troops march off against the witch, because that triggers the cannon right next to Potter's village to also send you to Gaia's navel. From there you can do the whole dwarf thingy, get the sprite Popoi and the girl Prim into your party, and then go back to the water temple and talk to Sage Luca. When you then get kidnapped by the goblins on your way to Pandora, you end up with a weird doppelganger experience where Prim is rescued by herself. Pointless, but also kind of funny, so I thought I might include it here. Anyway, time for more broken gameplay mechanics. So once you have at least one other character in your party, there is a way to overcharge your weapons and deal a ton of damage early on, to the point where you can one-shot the game's early bosses. You only need a second controller. So first, equip character 1 with a weapon that can be charged to at least level 2, and equip character 2 with a weapon that the first character can charge to at least one level less than the weapon he currently has. So for example, if Randy can charge the sword to level 2, the weapon on Prim should be only chargeable to level 1 by Randy. Fully charge the weapon on character 1 to its current max level, then using the second controller, going to the ring menu of character 2 and equip the weapon currently held by character 1. so you basically switch weapons while charging. If done correctly, the attack meter on character 1 will go haywire, but you can't tell where your current charge level is anymore, and the attack you unleash might just be a regular slash. However, the damage you deal gets a crazy multiplier and you can one-shot everything the game throws at you for quite a while. Now, I wouldn't recommend to use this trick other than for some entertainment purposes, but I will always make one little exception against a certain spiky boss enemy, because that stupid feline whooped my ass so bad as a kid, I have no problem to pay it back. Now, if one-shotting bosses is too dirty for you, here is another trick that's almost as effective and also has some additional applications. Chain casting spells. After casting a spell, there is a brief window where you can already start casting the next one, so both spell animations overlap and the damage keeps stacking. The easiest timing cue to open your ring menu and cast again is when your character goes into that short crouching stance once the summoned spirit disappears. As long as you have enough mana points, you can keep going and also completely trivialize a lot of boss fights, especially if you exploit elemental weaknesses. Now, I also wouldn't recommend using this all the time, but I will again happily make an exception against any of the elemental giants, because those idiots only give you about 2 seconds to damage them before they turn into the invincible sprite form for half an hour, so chain casting is the perfect way to deal with them. But chain casting is also the fastest way to level up your attack magic. Just find an enemy next to an inn, dump all of your MP into overlapping spells, call it a day as you go to sleep, and repeat. Now, this might not work for all spells because some animations are too short, but man, that poor little rabbit next to Kippo village definitely suffered a lot. So now that we know how to quickly level up our magic, what about our characters? Well, fortunately there is a way to gain an absurd amount of experience in one shot. But unfortunately for our 3 heroes, it involves killing your own party members. Yep, defeating one of your own characters somehow gives the others a massive 30,000 points of experience. Easily the fastest leveling method in the middle of your playthrough. To pull this off, find an enemy that casts Wall on itself, like the Dark Knights in the Palace of Darkness. Then unequip your armor and cast a strong spell on the walled enemy, which is deflected and hits your own characters. That poor soul usually dies instantly and the surviving party members can gain multiple levels at once. In my case, Popui jumped 4 levels because she accidentally nuked her companions. But since this requires enemies that use the wall spell, the earliest you can do this is in the Palace of Darkness against the Dark Knights. And honestly, getting this much experience any earlier would be utter ridiculous, so I'm not even mad about it. Okay then, so far I covered tricks that bend the rules of this game quite a bit, but if you want a more natural experience, yet still want to have an easier life, support spells are your best option. I'll be completely honest with you though, except for Cure Water, I barely used any support spells myself as a kid, and according to one of my recent community polls, about half of you did the same. But that's actually a huge mistake, because there are some absolute bangers in here. For starters, and easily the strongest support spell in the early and mid game, Stone Saber. Weapons enchanted with this spell have a high chance to petrify enemies, stunning them in place, but more importantly, the effect also halves their current hit points before your damage is applied. So that means if your hit deals more than 50% of your enemy's remaining hit points, they are instantly defeated, and Stone Saber turns a lot of regular encounters into 1 or 2 shots. And not so many enemies are immune to this effect. Speed Up is another strong support spell because it increases your hit chance, so it's especially useful against enemies that are naturally hard to hit, like these annoying tomato men and basically everything in the ruins of Pandora. In the late game, Lunar Boost and Moon Magic are even more ridiculous, and they also work against bosses. Lunar Boost raises your physical attack, while Moon Magic guarantees critical hits. And that means exactly what you think it does. Big, juicy crits. We love to see them. And one last thing. Despite what you might expect, Saber Magic does not convert your damage to that specific element. It simply boosts your raw physical damage by roughly 25% in addition to applying its special effect, like Petrify or turning enemy into snowman. So when the Frost Giant casts Ice Saber on you because he's resistant to ice damage, he's actually a big idiot and helping you out. Now before I show you how to find the best armor, I want to point out one little detail I didn't know for quite a while. So you likely noticed that your weapon can have special effects, like doing extra damage against certain enemy types or putting a balloon over their head. But what the game never really explains is that armor can have special effects too. Bracelets in particular can boost strength and agility or grant protection against certain status ailments. For example, if the flowers on the lofty mountains don't put you to sleep anymore, it's likely because you bought the Ivy Armlet, which grants protection against unconsciousness. So it's a good idea to occasionally check out some online sources. Okay, so the best head protection for Randy is the Griffin Helm that drops from the Griffin Hands in the Pure Land. The helm boosts your strength and agility in addition to having the highest defense, and it's also completely missable because you cannot access the area after certain events. The best helm for Prim and Potpourri is the Fairy Crown, which drops from the Terminators in the Mana Fortress. Whimpers then drop the Power Suit for Randy, and Master Ninjas drop the Fairy Cloak. Wolf Lords then drop the Fairy Ring for all 3 characters, so overall you have to farm a lot of enemies in the Mana Fortress. But you have to do this anyway if you want to upgrade your weapons to their final form. Yep, you likely noticed that bosses in the Mana Fortress don't drop weapon orbs anymore, and regular enemies do instead. But because the drop rates are abysmal, you have to spend a lot of time farming the fortress to max out every single weapon to level 9. Except for one. Now officially, the sword reaches its final form only during the fight against the Mana Beast. But unofficially, you can forge it earlier if you just so happen to get your hands on an additional sword orb, which is unfortunately not in the game. But we can use an exploit to help us out. Fair warning though, if done incorrectly, this exploit can corrupt your save file, so please make a backup and meticulously follow these 4 steps. Step 1. After getting the Dragon Buster, save the game at Neko's shop on that small island near the Ice Country. Step 2. Press the L, R, Start and Select buttons to reset the game and start a new adventure. Step 3. Make it to the fight against the Mantis and this is now important, hold the L, R, Start and Select buttons for at least 5 seconds during the fight to reset the game again. And really make sure to hold the buttons for at least 5 seconds before you let go. Step 4. Load the save file that you made on that small ice island earlier, but you will notice that you are still fighting the Mantis Ant, which you can slap to oblivion to get an additional sword orb. Then simply fly off after the fight and voila! You now have an additional orb to forge the Mana Sword. By far the best weapon overall, or how the game simply describes it, the top sword. So if you want to have an insane power trip, forge the Mana Sword immediately after you make it back from the Pure Land, level up the girl's Lunar Magic and completely steamroll all enemies in the Mana Fortress, including the bosses. Add Stone Saber or any other saber magic and you can slaughter your way till the end. I did this when my characters were still in their 60s and even the annoying Terminators and Master Ninjas exploded in an instant. And for the climatic fight against Thanatos, well, watch for yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this video about one of my most treasured childhood video game, and if you want to see more stuff like this, I'm actually planning a second video where I go through all Easter eggs and secret references, because it turns out that Secret of Mana is absolutely full of notches to other media. But I will also cover more games like this, so leave a like and subscribe to my channel because this is to be continued. Thanks for watching.